This is the Tech Phantom, and welcome to episode number one of this walkthrough. In this walkthrough, we are going to be cosplaying, but we are not going to be cosplaying as a character in Dark Souls. Instead, as you can see from the character creation screen, we are going to be cosplaying as one of my favorite literary characters, Conan the Barbarian. Now, why would you want to do this? Or why is this a fun thing to do or even a good idea? Well, I think that the fit between Dark Souls, the world of Dark Souls, and the fantasy sword and sorcery world of Conan the Barbarian are great matches. I think there is a lot of parallels that can be drawn from the sort of the enemies in the Conan anthologies, especially the two movies with Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer, with sort of the mythology of Dark Souls. So in this walkthrough, guys, we are going to cosplay as Conan the Barbarian, and we are going to try to mix the mythology of Dark Souls with the mythology of Conan the Barbarian. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
In the age of ancients, the world was unformed, shrouded by fog. A land of grey crags, arch trees, and everlasting dragons. But then there was fire, and with fire came disparity. Heat and cold, life and death, and of course, light and dark. Then from the dark they came and found the souls of lords within the flame. Nito, the first of the dead. The Witch of Izalith and her daughters of chaos. Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, and his faithful knights. And the furtive pygmy, so easily forgotten. With the strength of lords, they challenged the dragons. Gwyn's mighty bolts peeled apart their stone skins. The witches weaved great firestorms. Nito unleashed a miasma of death and disease. And Seath the Scaleless betrayed his own, and the dragons were no more. Thus began the Age of Fire. But soon the flames will fade, and only dark will remain. Even now, there are only embers, and man sees not light, but amongst the living are seen, carriers of the accursed dark side. Yes, indeed. The dark sign brands the undead. And in this land, the undead are corralled and led to the north. Where they are locked away to await the end of the world. This is your fate.
Okay, so let's get the background story sort of started. So the first thing we need to try to figure out is why would Conan be in the land of Lordran? And I think the most plausible explanation, or at least the explanation that I came up with, and actually, guys, I'm going to be posting these fairly rapidly now that I've started the this walkthrough. I've already taped all of the walkthrough, but I haven't taped the commentary, so it would be great if in the comments you gave me ideas to help me flesh out the story. But anyway, here's what I've come up with. Conan killed Tulsa Doom, trying to get revenge on Tulsa Doom because Tulsa Doom kills Conan's entire family. Actually, he killed his entire village and his people. But Tulsa Doom is a powerful sorcerer, and it turns out that Tulsa Doom is not from this world. It turns out that Tulsa Doom is from Lordran. And when Tulsa Doom died, in Conan's world, he actually escaped back to Lordran. And the priest, or I'm sorry, the wizard that helped Conan fight Tulsa Doom in Conan the Barbarian actually told Conan this and told him that, hey, you just think that you killed Tulsa Doom, but you really didn't kill him. Even though you cut off his head, you decapitated him. His soul is actually back in Lordran. So the wizard, through his magic, helps Conan travel from Conan's world into the land of Lordran. And that is why Conan is here in Lordran, in the world of Dark Souls,
Well, now you know.
looking for Tulsa
I
Doom.
can die with hope in my heart. Oh, one more thing.
Let's talk a little bit about the character.
Here, take this.
When I was thinking about what starting class
An
to
Estus
pick,
flask.
there were a couple of considerations. So obviously Conan
And this.
is very strong. He's very agile.
I hate to harm
He
you.
is a great
So go now,
fighter.
and thank you.
He doesn't use shields for the most part. He doesn't use armor for the most part. Although he he was trained in combat, and he knows how to use shields, and he knows how to use many different weapons. He prefers to be mobile, and he prefers a two-handed sword to a shield, and he prefers light leather armor or almost no armor to having heavy scale armor. So to me, it was an easy choice to start with the bandit class. The bandit class starts with very high strength, and it has it doesn't have any points on faith, or very little points for both faith, intelligence, and resistance. So that means that this build, the Conan build, you can use as many levels as possible into strength, dexterity, and endurance, which I think are what a true Conan character would be. You know, somebody with very, very high dexterity, very, very high, not very, very high dexterity, sorry, very, very high vitality, very, very high endurance, and very, very high strength. So, in the Conan mythology, Conan fears sorcery. As a matter of fact, in one of his movies, he is asked by a wizard, "Why are you afraid of magic?" And he says, "What is a sword compared to sorcery?" And that's one of his most famous lines. So Conan doesn't like to use magic. He likes to use two-handed weapons, and he doesn't like to use shields or heavy armor. So this build is going to be a two-handed, no shield build. I'm going to keep two hands on the weapon as much as possible. And I'm going to try to be as true to this story that I'm building for Conan as I can. But like I said, if you guys in the comments can start giving me some ideas to flesh out the story and to try to draw parallels between the Conan mythology and the Dark Souls mythology, I think that's going to make narrating this walkthrough a lot more fun for me and also for you guys as well. And the walkthrough is already done, the video portion of it. I've already recorded the walkthrough. But I haven't recorded the narration, and it's actually taken me a long time to figure out the best way to do it. So I think that the best way actually is to hopefully get you guys engaged and get help from the community to get more of a fleshed out story behind Conan and behind Dark Souls. Alright, so that's out of the way. So here's Conan. Obviously the first thing that he's going to want to do now that he finds himself in this strange land is to loot and to get a little bit better equipment than what he has. Conan is actually a thief. Many of his travels, many of his adventures and stories are associated with his looting and his time as a thief. And he has many friends that are thieves. Friends like Malak and Subutai.
I believe we are not acquainted. I am Petrus of Tharaland. Have you business with us? If not, I'd prefer to keep it.
Now here we see Conan talking with Petrus, the cleric.
Hello there. I realize that I have
And
requested that we retain.
Conan is very smart.
That it is not meant
He's
to
not only
be-
very strong, but he's also very, very smart, and he's also very
As a
wise,
token
and he's a
of
born
peace.
leader.
No, go
But-
ahead. It's for you.
He's actually able to get a copper coin out of Petrus.
Oh my, you again. Oh.
And then Petrus is actually going
How
to
about this?
ask
I
him
have
to
await
join
my
his
companions
covenant.
here anyway.
Now,
So what if I were to
when I was
take you
thinking
to
about the
Mirror?
character and whether
Would
Conan
that
should
please
join
you?
any covenants,
Very well.
I was
In
trying to decide
reverse,
what would be the best
a
covenant
covenant with the
for
gods.
Conan, and I came to the decision that
That is a
the
shame.
best covenant for Conan
But
would be
each to
no
their
covenant,
own. Speak
and
with
that's
me
because I'm
and
trying to
proclaim
stay
your
true
covenant.
to the Conan mythology. And Conan's god is Crum, who is a very fierce, a very unforgiving god. And in the movie Conan the Barbarian, his father, Conan's father, tells Conan about his god as he's telling him about the riddle of steel. And he makes it a point to tell Conan that Conan's god is Crum. And Conan never forgets that. And Conan has allegiance to Crum. He doesn't rely on Crum. He doesn't pray to Crum very often. Only when he really, really needs help. But for the most part, because Crum is a unforgiving and a fierce god, he's not going to give Conan much help. So Conan doesn't rely on Chrome and he doesn't expect help from Chrome. But he's also not going to abandon his beliefs that Chrome, as Chrome was his father's god and his people's god, that Chrome is going to remain his god. So Conan is going to be tempted, but he is not going to join any covenants. He is going to keep his entire allegiance, his main allegiance, to Chrome. So that is why he is going to refuse any and all offers to join covenants. So in this first episode, we are going to see Conan basically loot and try to get a little bit of equipment. Now let me talk a little bit about covenants. There is going to be one instance where Conan is going to join a covenant, but he is going to do this as a ruse, and he is eventually going to get out of that covenant. He's going to refute that covenant. So he does it to further his own ends. He doesn't do it because he doesn't believe in Chrome. But in a future episode, you will see Conan joining a covenant and then breaking it. And I have a little bit of a backstory that I will tell about that. The other thing that I wanted to talk about in the first episode of this walkthrough is the weapon for Conan. Now, I did a fair amount of research. I watched the movies. I actually have some of the original books of the Conan stories, and I have some comic books as well. So I did a fair amount of research, and Conan has used many weapons, but his principal weapon, his favorite weapon, is a two-handed sword, and not a gigantic sword, but a great sword, not an ultra great sword, not a small sword, but actually a great sword. So I think Dark Souls is going to provide us with the perfect weapon for Conan to wield. And I also think that the bandit starting equipment of the leathers and that the battle axe and that leather cap, I think that's actually what a barbarian would wear. And if you take a look at some of the pictorials or depictions of Conan, either in movies or in comic books, you will often see him wearing leather type armor, which I think is very appropriate for a barbarian. So I thought the bandit starting equipment was just perfect. So not only did I pick the bandit because of the stats, but I also picked the bandit because of the starting equipment. No other character felt like it had the proper starting equipment for Conan the Barbarian. And obviously, you guys saw that at the beginning of the video, I did not pick up the shield, the spider shield, or if I did, I'm not going to equip it. And that was another calculated decision that I made. And I think I mentioned this earlier. Conan does use shields in some of his stories and in the movies, but I think for the most part, the iconic view that we have of Conan, or at least that I have of Conan, is that he uses a two-handed sword with no shield, and he relies entirely on his skill, on his prowess with the sword, and his strength and his endurance. So that's how we're going to progress this build. We are hopefully going to find a sword worthy of Conan, and then we are going to give him the amount of strength, vitality, and endurance that Conan the Barbarian would have in the land of Lordran. Now, one thing that I did have to explain or come up, a reason I needed to come up with, is as to why would Conan, who here looks pretty buffed and pretty strong, why he is so weak at the beginning. And the reason is that this is a different world. It's almost a different reality. And the wizard had warned Conan that after he transported him to this land, that Conan was going to find many surprising and many strange things. Not only enemies and locations, but also some debilitations that he wasn't expecting. So even though before he was teleported to this area by his friend the wizard, he had all his strength. When he actually woke up and came to in the land of Lordran, even though he looks like he has all of his might, he actually doesn't is debilitated and doesn't have as much strength or as much vitality or as much endurance as he would have had in his world. And that's because, again, he's in a strange, different world. He's in the land of Lordran. So, in this walkthrough, we're going to see him basically find a weapon and level up and gain back his abilities, gain back his grace strength, his agility, and his vitality. So the first ring that I think Conan would pick up in the land of Lordran is the Wolf Ring. And why do I say that? Well, the Wolf Ring gives the character poise. And poise, the mechanics of poise is that it prevents you from being stunned. But from sort of a mythological standpoint, and just from the pure definition of the word poise, if you have poise, then you are calm under pressure, and you are not afraid of any situations. And obviously, these are traits that perfectly define Conan. So, for the Conan build, I thought it would be really important that he would have a lot of poise. And the only way to do that and to be agile and to move quickly at the beginning of the game at the beginning of the time when Conan reaches Lordran is to have the wolf ring. So that is the first ring that Conan is going to have, and that is the first ring that he is going to equip. Conan is going to get many rings, but he's going to rely purely on his physical traits and on his smarts. So he's only going to make use of a few rings. So Conan is continuing his travels in Lordran. In Undeadburg. And the battle axe, even at base level, is a very strong weapon. And certainly good enough for Conan. Here he's going to equip the Wolf Ring, and that's going to allow him to basically poise through any attacks. Again, that's the equivalent of being unafraid and charging into battle. Now, what we're searching for here, guys, is hopefully a little bit, a better weapon, or a weapon worthy enough of Conan. And we need to go through some enemies first. But we are going to try to find the weapon that Conan is going to use in this walkthrough. All right, so the riddle of steel, I think, is going to be very prominent in this walkthrough, and as we go from episode to episode, we're going to talk about the riddle of steel. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about is the fact that Conan is not going to use any magic, either normal magic or divine magic. So Conan is not going to use any sorceries. Conan is not going to use any miracles. But because Conan's father was a blacksmith, and Conan's father taught Conan how to make swords, Conan understands fire. So Conan will use pyromancies. Actually, Conan is only going to use one pyromancy, because that's all he needs. So I'll let you guys wonder about what that pyromancy is going to be. And tell me in your comments what you would think a fitting pyromancy would be for Conan to wield in this walkthrough. Okay, so Conan has found the bonfire under the Dragon Bridge. And because he took the back way to this area, the dragon is not in the bridge. But there will be a confrontation with the dragon in the future. Because again, Conan does not fear anything, any beast, even a dragon. And Conan will become strong enough to take on a dragon with no armor and no shield and only with the sword. And Conan has found a couple of different weapons so far. And he's found quite a number of souls. Because we picked up the basement key, we are able to open up that shortcut, and then we are also going to talk to our buddy Solaire.
Don't look hollow, far from it. I am Solaire of Astora, an adherent of the Lord of Sunlight. Now that
So this was another hard decision that I had to make. In most of the movies and in most of the books with Conan, he has a party. He has either one or two or three companions. Especially when he's a thief, because he is with other thieves to get loot or to get whatever price he's going after. But one of the tough decisions that I had to make for this walkthrough was whether Conan would have summons or would have buddies basically to help him through some of his quests. And I went back and forth quite a bit on that. Eventually I decided that in the land of Lordran, Conan doesn't know anybody. He's meeting some folks like Solaire, who he thinks is a funny and strange character. But I thought that Conan would basically be on a solo adventure in Lordran. This may disappoint some of you guys, but I thought it would be also it would be a better show of the capability of the build if I took on every area and every boss unaided and only with the weapon that we are going to equip in the next episode, and the armor that a little bit of armor that we're going to have on. So this is going to be a solo adventure of Conan in the land of Lordran. Now, how does Conan know where to pick up all of that loot? Well, Conan is a barbarian, and barbarians are known for their incredible sense of direction. It is very, very difficult for a barbarian to get lost or to get confused, even if they're blindfolded. So it's almost a sixth instinct that Conan has, where he can immediately know the lay of the land and the location of things. And it's almost as if he had radar, and he can make a beeline for loot. So that's going to do it for the first episode of this Conan walkthrough, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to your comments.